Hey, check it out, no hands. I'm actually flying this thing. This is not a replay, this is live. I have finally got the autopilot working nicely in the HH-65 Dauphin, part of the Dauphin twin pack from Taog's Hangar. I'm going to take you through a quick tutorial about how to use all the autopilot features in this helicopter, so let's fly. And for this one, we have come to the US Coast Guard station at San Diego. This is the Miltech scenery that they released with their MH-60 pack, but a great place to bring the new Taog's Hangar Dolphin. And I'm not going to repeat everything that I put in the Dauphin video, the AS365 autopilot video. There is a certain amount of overlap, so I'm not going to cover everything again. If you feel like you're getting lost in this one, then go back and watch the Dauphin AS365 video as well. And as always, if you get value out of these videos, I'd love for you to at least like this video, subscribe to the channel if you can, and there's some other ways to support me and this community, what we're doing here with heli simming, down in the video description, so check that out as well, please. And the autopilot controls are slightly inconveniently located on the center console, so they're not quite up as front as what they are on the AS365. We can deal with that. Here we have the FDS up the top here. So some of those modes you might have already seen in the 365. IAS, VS, ALT, heading select, nav. Those are all the same so far. Approach is a bit different. It combines both localizer and glide scope. And the next row is quite different, so I'm going to have to demonstrate these as we go. The IAS VS hold, it combines some collective coupling, which the 365 does not have at all. Nav transfer I'll get to shortly. Hover augment is again a collective couple, and it gives you a little bit of persistence in hover, but T-hover is where all the real goodness is in the Dolphin. Again, another collective coupled mode. Something that we'll also be dealing with are these HSVD controls. The HSVD is this device right up front, this sort of old-fashioned glass cockpit style instrument right here, so we can control that with those controls on the center console, so I will deal with that as we go. I do have a flight plan in today. It's pretty simple. We're going to be taking off from San Diego, or the Coast Guard station just on the outskirts of San Diego International Airport. We're just going to proceed out to the Pacific Ocean, do some exercises out here with our fancy tools, and then we're going to come back and land. And the purpose of this really is just for me to show you what the different approach is. I'll fast forward through all this and just get to the good stuff at the end. And because I do have all of those waypoints in the GPS, what I've done is on the HSVD, I've selected RNAV as my navigation source. So when I select the nav in the autopilot, it's going to be following RNAV. So it says here, and that corresponds to this LNAV indication on the HSVD, and we get the convenient normal navigation tools so that we can see our way around and actually get the machine to fly it for us. Bindings, I talked about this in the first video. You absolutely need trim release somewhere. If you're only going to use one switch on your joystick, make it this one, AS65 trim release. And that is both a input repetition on down, and when you release it, we trigger that release binding with the set control on release flag inside the control. Beep trim is corresponding to my hat switch, and so I did this in the other video, so now I'm going to get to the new stuff that the Dolphin adds. And the first one of those is FD slew. So ideally, if you do have space for it, you could put this on another hat switch. And that's just an up, down, left, right. I'll explain what that does when we get going. And very confusingly, there's this control called C-sync, collective sync. Now, this is very confusingly explained in the manual as it currently stands when I make this video. I think they can make it a bit clearer. So this works a bit like the trim release, but it's for the collective. So we hold it down, and therefore we have these two controls. Again, the first one needs to be on input repetition, and the release needs to be set control on release. And with all of those bindings hopefully made somewhere, if you can't put them anywhere else, you'll have to put them on a keyboard, you will be able to control everything that we're going to do in this flight with your hardware. And the first mode we'll deal with is HOV AUG, that's augmented hover. Reasonably simple. All it really does is hold your desired radar altitude above the surface. Doesn't really do anything too much with the attitude of the helicopter. As usual, the helicopter will just maintain the selected attitude, and in this case what it does is it controls the collective as well to maintain that selected height. So how do we do it? Let's pick up first and find out. We need lots of aft stick in the Dauphin, or the Dolphin, or both really, when we pick up. So aft stick, because that mast is canted so far forward, lots of aft stick up on our hind legs here, pulling that last little bit of collective. I should have had the trim release down the whole time. It now is. Just pulling up into a safe hover here. Releasing the trim release, and then the stick will just reset there. So I'm going to now engage HOV AUG. So everything here is up to me, except for the radar altitude. So how to change the desired height there? We're at 25 feet. I don't like this oscillation very much, but what we will do is maybe just use a bit of trim release to stop it from doing that. And to change this height, we hold down that new thing that we've set, the collective sync. So I've got it over here. I'm going to hold that down, raise a bit of collective, then we raise our height, then I'm going to release the collective sync. And because I was going a bit fast there, it was a bit of a sudden change. So I'll just try and do it a bit more gently this time. Holding down collective sync, reducing collective. Oh, that oscillation is not nice. Reducing collective, coming down a little bit, pulling collective now to just maintain that chosen height there, releasing the collective sync. Now HOV AUG will maintain that height. Now I don't want to go too far backwards here, and I'm now going to deselect HOV AUG. I almost probably took out that fence there, not a great move, Matthew, but let's just get going out to the Pacific Ocean and we'll deal with a couple of other things. Alright, gear is up and we are flying out to the Pacific Ocean to the west. So notice that I've got a small amount of vertical speed in. There are no autopilot modes in at the moment. As usual, the Dauphin or Dolphin will hold the one selected attitude that it has been left with. And something I didn't do in my first video was talk about the hat switch or the beep trim. And so it looks like it's sort of leveling off now. Notice that we're coming to a bit of a low ridge up ahead. So I'm going to pull a bit of collective here. And that's one way to get the vertical speed moving up. Another would have been to use a bit of backwards trim on the hat switch here, and I can just do the reverse of that now. So we added a bit of power, we're climbing up, we are accelerating too, of course, but what I will do is I'll just notch forward a few steps, down, or nose down, so forwards on the beep trim hat switch, until I start to lose that vertical speed. It looks like it might have done it about there. So that was just steps forward on that switch. So that of course will work for left and right and bringing the nose up as well, which I now need to get over that hill. So you could almost do an entire flight just with the hat switch, and I've seen helicopter pilots do that and stabilize helicopters. They're almost flying, once they get going, everything in the cruise and in the climb and everything is all just done with the hat switch. And as we cruise along the Pacific coast, I've left it in altitude hold at about 1,300 feet, and so raising or lowering the collective at this time will result in the helicopter accelerating or decelerating. I want to show you a new feature that the Dolphin has that the Dauphin does not, and that is this one, ASVS. So I'm going to engage that now. It will maintain the selected airspeed at the time that I engaged it, which, and I've just left this in the hover mode over here, so I'm going to need to change this, the HSVD, and I do that just by taking it out of hover, because that's what it was left on when I did the augmented hover, and I'm going to change that to, well, anything else really. I'll just go HSI. That's better. Now I can see that there's a commanded airspeed of 111 that the helicopter recalls. How to change that? With the FD slew up and down. That's that second hat switch I got you to add before. I'm going to go up and down now on the FD slew. Up will increase that commanded airspeed, so the nose will pitch down and it'll push us forward a bit faster. Come back on that hat switch towards me, and then that commanded airspeed reduces. Now it's at 105 and the helicopter will gradually follow suit. When we're in IASVS mode, how to change the selected vertical speed? Collective sync again. So holding down that collective sync, I'll just make sure this panel's not a nice view for you, and we're going to learn about these two indicators over here as well. I'm going to hold down collective sync. I'm going to push the collective. We are now descending at 500 feet a minute. That's what the VSI says. I release the collective sync now. And the helicopter will now control the collective, so we might see it moving up and down. It's just sort of oscillating just very slightly there, to maintain that 500 feet per minute descent at my commanded airspeed of 105 knots. So what about these two interesting indicators here? When AS365 is selected, I don't have control of the collective anymore, but I sort of do, because look at that red indicator. That green indicator shows what the helicopter is really doing, and that red indicator shows where my physical control that's currently disconnected has been left. So what I might do when we disconnect later on is just make sure that my red indicator there, I just move that so that it's aligned with the green indicator, and then there won't be a nasty sort of jerk up or down when I go to the next mode. Speaking of the next mode, we are now passing 550 feet. And notice that we've got T-hover in amber. So when we went into AS365, T-hover became sort of pre-selected. Now we're going quite fast down now, so I'm just going to get that collective sync held down, pull up the collective a bit to reduce that rate of descent. I'm going to show you something cool here in a second. So we are now descending at about 250 feet per minute, and something good is going to happen at 100 feet. So there was a landing gear warning because we're getting quite low. That's fine. We can just ignore that. We're at about 175 feet now, 150. What's going to happen at 100 feet is T-hover is going to move from amber to engaged. So this is a transition to hover. And the helicopter is going to do it all for us. As soon as we have left it in AS365 in a descent, there it goes. It's captured. And it's going to do two things. It's going to slow us down to a hover, but it's also going to just gently, hopefully, descend us to 50 feet radar height. So we're at 75 height there now. There's 50. Has it all worked? T-hover is engaged. The last amount of our airspeed is coming back in. And there's our transition to hover. It works, so I'm pretty happy with that. Let's get back inside. Now, we've kind of got a vector here. We've got this wind direction coming in here from our sort of 2 o'clock at the moment. I'm just going to maybe just use the pedals now. Just bring that gently around. Maybe that's not quite gently enough. And we've kind of got this interesting crosshairs display here in the hover. And this shows us how we're tracking against the ground. And so if I were to go down on the FD slew hat switch, so this is not the beep trim hat switch, this is the FD slew that we set up. What I want to do is bring that back so that first of all the vector that was moving there from the aircraft is now pretty much at 0. The T-hover does correct for the wind, but I'm just going to make it just even easier just by just pedaling that last way over here into the wind. I'm perhaps just very slightly confused about this display and whether it's actually always correct. I've had times where I feel like the crosshair is not necessarily helping me figure out my orientation and my lateral track. If I do want to move my lateral track, let's say over to the right a bit, you might just be able to see it out the corner of the window there. I'm going to go right on the FD slew, and then that I think should be moving us over to the right. It does seem to be working just a bit slow. Then I'll just now go the other way to the left, and we see that vertical bar come over there. So that would seem to indicate that we're not making any progress left or right now. I'm just a little bit uncertain about what the horizontal bar there is doing. I think sometimes it works perfectly, sometimes it just might be a little bit bugged in this early version. So other things that we can do when we're in T-hover mode is we can use the, I think I maybe forgot to show you this binding at the start, but there is another one that we can do, collective beep down and up. It just works the same as all the other beeps, so just need to make sure that input repetition is on. I've put that over on that same button that I've got the collective sync on. Well, I push in for collective sync, and then I can go up and down for the collective beep. So I'm going to beep down collective, watch what happens. We lose, I think it's 3 feet down on the collective beep. We lose 3 feet more. It's a bit abrupt here on the collective. I wish they could make that a bit slower, a bit more gentle. But you see now my radar alt is 34, and I'm gradually getting closer and closer to the sea. It's a very dramatic effect. So that's 30 feet now. I can get down to 25. That's 23, and that was just successive clicks down on the collective beep. And if you're not so keen on operating that control pad down there on the center console, you can repeat it all here on the tPad. I personally don't love controlling the aircraft like this, but that's just me. If you like this, you could maybe move the pad to somewhere you like it. It's just that I just don't find this a particularly realistic way of doing it. I'd love it if there could be a fictional maybe panel right where my mouse is circling over here, and maybe repeat the buttons there, which I actually think would be less unrealistic than having the pad, but that's just me. Your mileage may very well vary. I've brought this up because this has got the go around function on it. There is supposed to be a go around button on the collective. In this edition here, there appears to be no button down here, but there is this loose thing down here with no tooltip or anything on it, so that seems to have fallen off and not be connected at the moment. Not quite sure what's happened there. So let's push this go around button. We see that we come out of T-hover mode. I'll put that pad away now. I only need it for that one thing. And so what's going to happen here is you see that T-hover has come off down here as well. And I don't want that moving over there, yawing over there to the left, so I'll just correct it with some pedal. It is pitching down to attain 40 knots indicated airspeed. And when it does 40 knots, it's going to pitch up to maintain 700 feet per minute climb. So this is a bit like the depart control in the MH60 if you're used to that. So now we're climbing out. I think the safest thing to do here is probably to engage the IAS mode, and so therefore any extra power or reduction of power. And guess what I didn't do? I didn't align the position of the collective with the indicator on there, so that's why we just had a bit of a sudden dramatic moment there. That was my fault. I am now going to let it climb up to about 1,500 feet, and we'll try and get back on our nav path. And to do that, I'm going to need to tell the HSVD to go to the HSI, and we'll get RNAV engaged in here. So to intercept this path, I will need to just use this heading bug over here. It's a bit awkward down there. Notice that I got quite significantly off course. We will choose heading select. We'll get that nav capture on as well, so it will intercept this path and will fly us down on that. I'm going to aim for 3,000 on here, and then that'll line us up for the ILS that we're going to do later on. So 3,000 feet achieved, and with alt mode now in, nav has changed from amber to green, which means it's captured, and we'll follow that track in, and I will set us up for the ILS. And that ILS approach looks like this. We're going to go into runway 24 right at Miramar, and we are just going to proceed up in this direction, and I'll bring you back in when we are on an intercept course with that ILS path. And it's easier really for me to get the frequencies in here, so 111.15 is what we want, so that is in here for runway 24 right. That's perfect. And so I want us to intercept between Jarmo and HOMAD. At HOMAD, we need to be at or above 3,000 feet. We're at 3,000 feet, so this is all going to be just fine. So I've brought us in a heading for that so that we can get out of nav mode. And so on the HSVD here, we need to come to VL. VL, I said, maybe off RNAV, VL, got there in the end. So VL is now selected, and looking back at the panel then, we can see that we've got the localizer selected here, and we are below the glide slope, which is what I'd expect. It's starting to come in now, actually. So what I will do is engage approach, which does several things. We've got approach in amber now, and it's going to hold the glide slope when we intercept it, and hopefully hold this CDI here. I've come in at a slightly too steep angle. It should be 45 degrees or less. It's a little bit more than 45. We'll see how the helicopter can cope with this. Approach is now in green. That's promising. And we are turning to intercept. And we overshot thanks to my poor piloting, but it's going to get itself sorted out soon. So there's the airport in the distance, and how are we going down here? The glide slope we're almost about to intercept, so we'll see vert change from amber to green. We're 8 miles out from the ILS, that's good. 110 knots, about to intercept, and we'll see this change. There it is, we've got vert in green now. And we've got something else in amber, that is T-hover. Our old friend T-hover is currently in amber. So what's going to happen when we get to 100 feet of radar height is that the helicopter is going to transition automatically into T-hover for us. And so I'll just let us skip forward and see that happen. Decision height is 200, which I've just set with that knob there. 4 nautical miles out, I will lower the landing gear, so we'll see that come down and we'll get our green lights over here. I should just mention one there they are. I should mention one last light here. You notice that there's a nav control light up here, and there's a corresponding one over here for the co-pilot, which is extinguished right now. If you like to fly from the left seat, you can do so. You will just need to, on the autopilot panel, use the nav transfer over there, and that gives the navigation power to the other side. So there's 200 feet, our decision height. We get an alarm there, and at 100 feet, we are going to see the helicopter transition into T-hover, so we should see that turning green. There's 100 feet. That's turned green. Nose pitches up. Speed decreases. And the helicopter's doing all of this for me. I might just give it a bit of a helping hand with the pedal there. And ready to take over. I'm going to do it with trim release and just bring us over to the apron here. I haven't really done too much planning here for Miramar, so I'm just going to not fly by the tower. That's just too passé. I'm going to instead go and land next to some of these F-18s. So trim release is down the whole time for this. I did have to also bring us out of T-hover just to cancel that. If you've got a spare button for AFCS disconnect, that would have served nicely there as well. And I'm just going to illegally just pop myself down here and enjoy the view. Well, that was fun. A little bit janky in places, the autopilot, especially with the Dolphin. There's just a lot more going on with that collective coupling as well. I feel that Taog's Hangar is likely to be addressing any problems with that system, hopefully very soon, but certainly as time goes on. So if you have enjoyed this, thank you. Please just look at some options in the video description to help support the community and what I do to help people lift their game in helicopter flight simulation. Or, of course, you could just like and subscribe. I'd love that too. And I hope to catch you in another video tutorial for helicopters and Microsoft Flight Simulator real soon. See ya.